So, if you have never read the Bible, never had a sermon, or never opened the book, the Bible, this teaching this day on Genesis is for you, because Genesis is not just the beginning of the Bible, it's the beginning of you. It tells you the story of how the universe was born, you know, but more than that, it reveals why you exist, why the world feel broken, and why your soul longs for something more. It is not poetry, it is not religious fluff. It is the divine opening scene of your origin, your purpose, and your battle. And if you have ever wondered, why am I here? Why is life so hard? Is there a God? And if there is, why does He care about us? This is not just relevant. It is essential, because before the Ten Commandments, before the cross, before the church or religion or rules, God spoke. And what He first said changes everything. But at the end of this teaching, you won't just understand Genesis, you will see how it holds very breath to the key to your own. And every word you are about to read has been shaped to help you understand the Bible for the first time clearly, deeply, and powerfully. This is not about gaining knowledge, it's about meeting God through His Word. If that is your desire, you're not alone. I am with you. Welcome. Okay, let's dive in. Before there was light, before there was stars, before the first mountain rose, or the first river flowed, there was a voice, not a whisper, not a breeze, a voice with no beginning, a voice that carried eternity in its breath, a voice that didn't just speak the universe into being, but shaped the story that still shapes you. But here is the question no one dares to ask. Who told this story first? Who was that to write down the beginning? At the beginning, that's where many pastors confused, skeptical, are unsure if this is all just myth, because how could anyone know what happened in the beginning until they were there? Here is the deeper truth. The story of Genesis was not invented. It was remembered, passed down, spoken, carried like fire from one generation to the next until it was carved into a written form. And the man God chose to write it down was Moses. But before we talk about the writer, you need to understand the world he was writing to. Um, this wasn't written in a modern classroom or by candlelight in the monastery. The book of Genesis was revealed in a desert under the blaze of the Middle Eastern sun, among the people who had just been freed from slavery after 400 years of oppression in Egypt. These people had no national identity, no written scriptures, and no clear understanding of who they were or who their God was truly was. They were Hebrews, descendants of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, but after generations in Egypt, their faith was diluted, surrounded by idols, trained to serve pharaohs, raised in a land that worshipped crocodiles, the sun and the Nile River. They had heard of Yahweh, the God of their fathers, but they didn't really know Him. Not yet. Imagine walking out of the only life you have ever known, bondage, and into the white, terrifying freedom of the wilderness. You have seen miracles, plagues, and the Red Sea split open, bread fall from heaven, but still your heart trembles. You don't know what comes next. You don't know even who you are. This is when God tells Moses to write, and the first word Moses writes are not about laws or rituals or religion. They're about beginning. In the beginning, God created the heavens and the earth. Pause. Let that sink in. So these are not just the opening lines of a book. These were the first words of identity spoken to a people who had none. Moses wasn't just writing theology. He rebuilds a broken worldview. He was telling a people who had been dehumanized, demoralized, and dominated. Moses was telling them that their story didn't begin in chains. It began in glory, in intention, in light. Moses was uniquely chosen for this task, not just because he knew God, but because he had walked in two worlds. Born as a Hebrew, raised as Egyptian royalty, Moses had access to the best education of the ancient world. He could read, he could write, he could understand literature, poetry, politics, and philosophy, but he also knew the wilderness. He knew exile. He knew the voice of God in fire and thunder. He was the perfect vessel to take the ancient oral stories passed down from the patriarchs, the line of Abraham, and stitch them together through divine inspiration into a written revelation. And make no mistake, Genesis is not just a history book, it is a confrontation. In Moses' world, the Egyptians believed the universe came from chaos, God fighting oceans, warring, light accidentally being born from bloodshed. Egyptian believed also that life was random, power was everything, Pharaoh was uh, God, was divine. Creation was made to serve the gods. But Moses writes something utterly radical. There was one God, not many. He didn't fight chaos, he spoke and chaos bowed. The sea wasn't a god, the sea obeyed. The stars weren't spirits to be worshipped, they were lamps hung by his fingers. The sun and the moon weren't gods, they were clocks set in motion by a voice beyond time. And humanity, not slaves to be used, but image bearers made in the likeness of the Creator, made to walk with God, rule with God, live with God. Can you feel that tension? This wasn't just about creation. It was a declaration of war against every false worldview the Israelites had absorbed. It was a revolution of identity. And for us, thousands of years later, the same war rages. You have been told you are an accident, a product of chance, that your value comes from success, that your worth is determined by others, that morality is relative, that life has no author, just endless rewrites. But Genesis says something otherwise. Genesis says you are created on purpose by a God who is purpose. Genesis says light is not the result of compassion, it's the voice of God breaking darkness. Genesis says you are not here to survive, you are here to live abundantly. You are here to reflect the one who made you. This is why Genesis matters. And this is why Moses was told to write, because when you forget where you come from, you forget who you are. That's what God was rescuing his people from. Not just Egypt chains, but Egyptian lies. And that's what he is rescuing you from too. See, Moses didn't write Genesis as a science textbook. He didn't give us every biological mechanism or chemical process. He wasn't trying to win a debate. He was revealing reality. Genesis was written to answer the most important questions of every human heart. Who made me? Why am I here? What went wrong? Is there hope? And those answers begin with the author, not Moses, but God himself. The Spirit of God breathed through the pen of a flawed man in a tent in the wilderness, surrounded by a people still afraid of a God who had just set them free. He gave them a beginning so they could find their way forward. And he's still doing that today. If you're still listening to this and you have never believed the Bible, maybe you have dismissed it as outdated, irrelevant, or unscientific. Hear this. Genesis is not trying to argue with your mind. It is trying to answer or to awaken your soul, because deep down you already know. You feel the fracture in this world. You sense the emptiness of life without meaning. You have tasted what it's like to be surrounded by people and still feel alone. You have asked the question, is there more? Genesis answers with a whisper and a thunder, yes, there's more, and it began before time did. So as we open the book of Genesis, not just with our eyes, but with our hearts, remember this, these ancient words were written in a desert for a people trying to learn how to be free. And maybe that is exactly what you are doing too. Maybe the God who hovered over the waters is hovering over your chaos right now. Maybe the God who spoke into this voice is still speaking now. And maybe, just maybe, the story of Genesis is already part of yours. May God bless you so much as you start your journey in the book of Genesis. Amen.